Hello, my name's Rachel and I work for Step 2 Young People's Health. This video is part of a series called How to Talk to Your Child About. This video is particularly about gender, identity and sexuality. So before you start, remember that our young people are extremely tech savvy. They may know more about this than you. They may have found things online that they've been looking for, but also this is now part of the national curriculum for relationships and sex education. So your child should have done some of this work in secondary school. Generally, schools tend to start doing this work around about year 8, but that is not a set in stone. You know, that's just when they've decided it fits best. So understand that you can't be expected to remember every word and term. There are so many different bits of terminology out there, you cannot possibly be expected to remember them all. If your young person is identifying as any of these things, believe me, they will have done the research for you. Okay. Think about what you do and don't know. Be honest, there's going to be some gaps in your knowledge. You're not expected to know everything about everything. And because things change so quickly and because of all these new words and terms and things, you're not expected to be a one-stop encyclopedia of all information about gender and sexuality. Now, it might be that your young person is going through puberty. If you think back to your puberty experience, some people will have had a fairly straightforward time of it. Some people it will have been really complex. It is very, very difficult for a young person who is questioning their identity because everything's changing, everything about them is changing, their hormones are going everywhere. But if they're already questioning who they are, that must make things so much harder for that young person. So it's likely that they will have gone on the internet, they will have spoken to other people to find out information before they talk to you. Okay, so I have put some of the key terms on here, and like I said, you're not expected to remember all of these. Okay, there's no test on this in life. Okay, Stonewall on their website have an extremely detailed glossary of loads of different terms. Obviously you can just Google stuff and you're going to get answers, okay, but Stonewall do have a very, very comprehensive glossary should you need it. Okay, so you will be familiar with some of these terms. You may struggle with some of the others. There are a couple on there that people may find unusual. So obviously, I'm aiming this at parents of young people. You may well remember the term queer from, the 90s, maybe earlier, where that was actually an extremely derogative term, and it still can be. However, some people are trying to reclaim that term and see it as something extremely positive, and they're happy to identify as queer. Okay, now I'm not going through all those terms. There's not really a need to. You and your young person will identify the correct terms for them. There is one thing I will point out, and that's heterosexual. A lot of people will look at things like passport forms and you will see the word heterosexual, and we've had questions about, well, why is straight not an option? That is straight. Okay, heterosexual is straight. The reason not a lot of people use straight anymore, or people in this kind of community don't use straight necessarily, is because of, if you are not straight, the implication is that you are bent, and bent was a very, very derogatory term for anybody who was gay. So it's personal choice. Some people will like these words, some people will absolutely hate them, some people will use different words. You can't kind of look at somebody and decide which terminology to use. It's absolutely impossible because everybody will have different terms that they use. So moving on to look at some of the pride flags. There are many. That says the ultimate guide, and it's absolutely not. There are so many more than that. Okay, you can see the one that started it. That was the original pride flag that then got condensed into the 6-colour pride flag that most of us will know and will have seen many, many times. In Philadelphia, they then decided that they wanted to add a black and brown layer because they were concerned that people of colour were struggling to come out, were not being accepted by the community, you know, significant race issues there. They wanted these people to feel represented, so they added those two colours to their pride flag. You've got your transgender, your non-binary, your intersex flag. You may have seen, you may not. We do have other information about what it means to be intersex on some of our videos. You've got the asexual community. Again, we've got some of that information too. There are the others along the bottom there. And then you've got the modern pride flag. So this has kind of evolved and tried to include a lot of things. You can see it's got the 6-colour flag. You can see it's got the black and brown, and you can see it includes transgender. Now, there are frequently discussions about these pride flags and about whether they are inclusive and whether people have been deliberately missed out. All of those flags, it would be impossible to get everything on one. It would be far too confusing. It would not make sense to people, and it could potentially put people off supporting and wearing the flags. However, there has been one recent change, and that's the Progress Pride flag. So you can see that it's very, very similar to the modern Pride flag, but it now has the intersex bit as well. So the yellow with the purple circle. There are still some complaints that this is not fully inclusive. However, it is much more inclusive than it used to be. Okay, so different groups of people are represented more on this flag. Now, it's very difficult because we always say that you shouldn't label people, you shouldn't put people in boxes, you shouldn't judge them based on who they are. But having all these different terms and these different flags and things, there's an argument of, well, we are labeling people. But it's actually not labeling, it's people identifying. So feeling that they belong to a community, to a group, feeling that they have some pride in who they are. So you might be aware of key terms, you might not be. So gender is what it means to be male or female in our society. So that is your kind of interpretation. It includes the stereotypes we have around gender, how people dress, what colours they like, whether they like football or not. It's all of those kinds of things that make up gender. Your sex is what's assigned to you at birth. So that is generally based on your chromosomes and the look of your external genitals. So when the nurse, doctor, midwife, whoever hands the baby over and says congratulations, it's A. Okay, now that doesn't work 100% of the time, okay, but it's generally sort of a quick glance and that's what it is, but it is confirmed generally through a blood test. Sexuality, so that's your capacity for sexual feelings, and not everybody has that. It's who you romantically or sexually attracted to. So that all kind of makes up your sexuality, how you kind of present that to other people. So thinking about why your young person might be wanting to have this conversation with you. They might be questioning their identity. That is entirely possible. Okay, they might be questioning who they are. It might be that actually that never comes to anything, but it could lead to them coming out. It could lead to them wanting to make changes, basically, in the way they live their life. They might just be curious. One of their mates might be going through some questioning. They might have been having conversations about it at school. They might just be, I had this question in my PSHE lesson or whatever, and I was a little bit scared to ask it. Can I ask you about it? Could be that they're confused, they don't understand. It can be really overwhelming. All those terms can be incredibly hard for a young person. And we do get a lot of, well, what's normal? What term do you use if you're just normal? Everybody's normal, nobody's normal. Okay, what they mean is if you are born one gender and you continue to believe throughout your life that you are that gender, that was given to you correctly, the term for that is cisgender. Okay, but young people it's very unintentional. They're not doing it to be obtuse or difficult, but they will say, well what's normal? And it's about them kind of understanding that. Like I said, if they've done this at school, they might have heard something, they might have questions they didn't feel they could ask at the time. Or, you know, your young people trust you. Yes, they're going through puberty. Yes, they might be being really difficult, but actually they're being difficult with you because they know they're safe with you. Okay, so it might be that they just need to talk to you because they know it's safe. Different people in their friendship group might have conflicting views about things. They might want to know what's right, and for some stuff it is their interpretation of it. You know, if you're not experiencing it yourself, it can be very, very difficult to understand things. So they're listening to different views from different people. One person saying, well, I absolutely hate the word homosexual, I'd rather use the word gay. And another person saying, well, no, I prefer to use gay, I don't like the word homosexual, it sounds too formal or whatever. And they're just a bit like piggy in the middle, thinking, I think I need to ask my mum or dad a question about this. And that's absolutely fine. So the best ways to support them through it, keep having the conversations. They're not going to learn everything overnight, and because their brain's still developing, they're going to forget some of the bits that you've told them, or they're going to process over it for a long time, and then they're going to have follow-up questions. Check that they understand things. It's really easy to just rattle through and say, well, I've read this and and they're not taking it in. Check that they know what you're talking about. Find things out together if you need to. There are various charities. You've got the glossary on the Stonewall website. They will really appreciate you spending that time to talk to them. Let them know that you love them. If your child is going through some gender identity issues and they're scared and confused, remind them that you're there. Remind them that you love them and that they're still your child. If you need to, get professional help, and I'll talk about that in a sec. Try not to dismiss them, because actually if they've come to you to ask a question, it's because they need the answer. You know, something's really, really bothering them. They might not feel they have anywhere else to go. They might not have that kind of relationship with their teacher at school. You know, they need an answer. Try not to belittle them. Oh, what do you know? You know, we've heard this a lot. What do you know? You're just a teenager. You'll grow out of it. You know, that kind of thing. That doesn't help. And try not to judge those that are different. Whatever your personal beliefs, okay, try not to pass them on to your child. Let them make their own mind up. So in terms of support, if your child is struggling and you're at a point where you genuinely don't know how to help them, contact the NHS. Okay, it could be that they need some talking therapy to help identify it themselves. It could be that there is a gender identity issue that needs to be diagnosed by a doctor. So if the NHS feel that is the case, they will refer to the Gender Identity Development Service at the bottom there. If they've got questions about general sexual health and you're in the Bradford area, then you've got Locala and you've got BASH. Other sexual health services are available in your local area. You just need to Google them. Brooke is a sexual health charity, a national charity. They have a fantastic website with loads of services on there, and I strongly recommend that you do have a look. It's not on there, but I've already mentioned Stonewall. You could have a look on their website as well. Step 2 is who I work for, and we work with James and Hale, and we deliver relationships and sex education across the Bradford district. James is an independent school. Hale is a health charity, so they do sexual health, they do social prescribing, they do all kinds of bits and pieces. Step 2 are sexual health and mental health, so we can also offer counselling to young people. You can see our social medias there if you've got questions, if your young person's got questions that you can't answer. By all means, get in touch with us through our social medias. If it doesn't come through to the right person, we will make sure that it gets to them and that you get an answer. Okay, like I said, this is part of a series of videos, so feel free to have a watch of the others. If you are struggling, then, you know, get in touch with one of the services, ask questions, and if you're not local to Bradford, have a look at what's available in your local area.